Hello, everybody. We'll go ahead with today's keynote session by Dr. James Stanger. He was scheduled to be here, and last moment, because of the bad news of coronavirus outbreak, a lot of international flights had to get cancelled. Uh, Despite that, Dr. James actually wanted to fly to us, but he was barred. So apparently, the countries are taking steps so that the virus can be contained in countries and that the spreading stops. So US, Europe have come out with various rules to help their citizens. So I think while he starts speaking, he will also tell you the same thing. And we hope to have him next year or some other time. And maybe some of you already know him. He does a very good security podcast, very engaging. So we hope to see him maybe next year. I'll just give a small introduction, and then we'll start with his keynote. So Dr. James Stanger has consulted with corporations, governments, and learning institutions worldwide about cybersecurity, Linux, and open source, web technologies, and emerging tech for over 20 years. Organizations such as DBS Bank India, IBM Entity, the UAE Cultural Division, Symantec UK, Royal Army, the US Navy, General Dynamics, and many more have consulted with him for security solutions. He is currently the Chief Technology Evangelist at CompTIA, the world's largest IT tech industry association. I'd like to welcome Dr. James Stanger for his talk today on surfing today's emerging tech, a policy-based approach. Dr. James, if you can hear me.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. I apologize for not being able to attend in Bangalore. I was very much looking forward to your hospitality and to being there in person. My company made the decision to that nobody could go, and so it wasn't really my decision. But I really thank you for your patience. My name is James Stanger, and I used to do a lot of surfing back when I was young. I'm not young anymore. I'm old. And the reason I bring up surfing is because that's the name of the presentation here. It's about surfing today's emerging tech and how to take a policy-based approach. Even though I don't surf anymore, I do a lot of water sports, kayaking. I do a lot of scuba diving. And in fact, I was just at the coast where I live. I live in the Seattle, Washington area. I'm curious, has anybody here ever been to Seattle before? Raise your hands if you have. I'm curious if you've ever been to Seattle before. I see a few of you there. Okay, all right. Well, that is a place called Thor's Well that you're looking at on that screen. And you should see throughout the rest of this presentation a few other areas on the Oregon coast and a few other references to some of the places that I like to go to in the Oregon coast. I'm here to talk to you today about shadow IT and how to take a policy-based approach at looking at how to manage shadow IT. Let me give you a bit of context, and this is some context that I have obtained from talking to IT professionals such as yourself around the world. My job as Chief Technology Evangelist is to talk to hiring managers, to CISOs, to CIOs about cybersecurity, about many different topics, about emerging technology as well. And one of the kind of catch-alls, one of the concepts that keeps coming up is the concept of what most people these days are calling ambient computing, fancy term for saying that intelligent tech is everywhere. It's so much everywhere. It's so everywhere. It's kind of like the air we breathe. We use it without realizing it. And it's very important that to understand that the data that's generated from all of these IoT devices, from all of the devices that we carry around. Here's my phone. It generates tremendous amount of data. Organizations are using IoT devices, are using mobile phones, et cetera, to get information out of us. They monetize that information. They make better products, et cetera. Ambient computing is a concept that belongs to something called the fourth industrial revolution. And it's a buzz phrase, but it's a useful one. Now, with ambient computing, we consume tech, that's the case. But if you take a look at some of these pictures that I've put up here on the screen, it basically is showing that from smart light bulbs to our smart watches that some people have. I'm old school. I still wear an old watch. But basically, we become digitalized, as it were, digitized. The information that we generate then becomes part of a profile, and companies use this. And the question becomes, as an organization, whatever organization you belong to, I talk to government contractors, I talk to around the world, in Japan, the Ministry of Defense, the United States, the UK, but also to retailers around the world. Um, Basically, they're very interested in finding ways to answer these three questions that you're looking at. What information do people obtain from ambient computing or from the IoT devices that people have? How do companies obtain it? And what do they do with that information? Trust me, folks, you may think your organization does a really good job of answering those questions to consumers. Most organizations do not. And don't think too much that your organization is the exception. I think most of us, in your room, in this room, or whatever, in this presentation, are implicated in not answering those questions well. And there's a bit of a backlash when it comes to IoT. Now, let me talk about a couple of trends that are relevant to ambient computing. Automation, it's been around for a whole long time. You're looking at basically my summary of many automation technologies that are used today. Machine learning, artificial intelligence, deep learning. We can all talk about Docker and Kubernetes. These are basically very modern, postmodern ideas of automation. We use tech to improve itself, to improve existing situations, and to respond and to get or make data. It's part of the world we live in. And automation is something that, because it happens quickly and automatically, is something that's kind of like an oncoming wave. This wave I took, by the way, on a place called the Oregon coast, where I like to spend a lot of time. A lot of people were very upset I got this close to the waves. They thought I was going to get dragged in by the ocean, but I didn't. I survived. But the reason I put this up here is because I think a lot of people find that automatic technologies tend to overwhelm them a bit. I'll get to what I'm talking about in a minute. You see, when it comes to automation, we've been dealing, folks, with automation for hundreds of years. The first industrial revolution was a long time ago, okay? Talking hundreds of years ago. And it's basically when we realized that we could harness steam and mechanization. The second revolution is when electricity came along. We created electricity and did mass production. The third revolution was all about IT systems and automation. Today, we're really talking about, if you believe in a fourth industrial revolution, it's beyond the information age, really, and really getting into the combination of some form of physical system and our identities. This is very important to understand. So as we have moved on from the 1700s to the 1800s to the 1900s and now to cyber physical systems, these waves continue to overwhelm us in the forms of, for example, shadow IT. Hang on to that word. I'll define it in a moment. Now, all automation is not a bad thing. About a year ago, I had a tree fall down in next to my house, and I had to cut it up into wood so I could help heat my house, keep my heating bill down. And you can see I used various technologies, some of it quite old, an axe, a few things like that, to keep it going. To cut the tree up. But I also used some modern things. If you take a look at what you're seeing now, the technology that you're seeing, look at that. It's basically a very simple lifting mechanism. I have there basically a couple of I've chopped the wood up a little bit into a couple of into rounds using a simple axe. Okay. But what I've really done here, and I think what's really important to understand, is that as I basically, instead of just sticking with those tools, I also used a modern piece of equipment. And that modern piece of equipment made things a lot easier. What you're looking at there is something my grandpa gave me a long time ago to organize the wood. But before I organized the wood, my dad showed me how to use something called a wood splitter. So I'm a great believer, and you'll see that wood splitter in just a second here come up. There it is. It's something that I've been using for a long time, but my dad, who's 90 years old now, as usual, he keeps teaching me new things. He showed me how to use this automatic wood splitter so that I was able to get several cords of wood in a matter of hours, where normally I would hardly been able to cut any wood at all. The reason I bring this up is I'm not suspicious of automation. I think automation is a good thing. Okay. But what I want to do is explain that automation won't replace everyone. It basically, though, requires us to change the way we work and think. And so, as we avoid shadow IT, I want to explain a couple of other moments, a couple of other actually movements and trends that are really important for us to think about. The first thing is basically we are seeing IT augment what physical reality in an important way. Now, in that lighthouse that you just saw, that's basically something that has become automated. It no longer is a working lighthouse. It's automated by something that is a fraction of the size. What you're looking at here is a gentleman from Cambridge showing you an augmented reality app. It's an app that you install on your mobile phone, and it's something that allows this is a gentleman from the University of Cambridge in the UK. He was showing me how he is using augmented reality to basically show a lot of the museum pieces. And this is something that as you move that cube behind the phone, you have the ability to see that device, that particular artifact without actually being able to handle it. But you could still see it as if you were handling it. This enables research to happen around the world. Yes. Okay, great. Yes, great. That's fine. Thank you. What I want to point out is that when it comes to augmentation and virtualization, where we are seeing the virtualization of everything happening, whether it be network virtualization, we're seeing the advent of the cloud happen more and more. We've talked about the cloud for 10 or 15 years, but only the last 3 to 5 years are we seeing it really happen. And what we're seeing now is basically the democratization of everything. We have now the opportunity for people to use these tools more than ever before. Now, one way to hold on to keep track of those things is to focus on the web, open source, and Linux. That will help you understand the different waves of emerging tech as they surf along. We did a survey at CompTIA. We surveyed hundreds of IT professionals. These are CIOs, CISOs. These are the technologies that they find very important today. IoT software, AR, but more importantly, they are basically saying we are becoming data information caretakers. More and more, it's database, not just database administration, but understanding analytics. If information is the new oil, and if possession is 9/10 of the law, our job as IT professionals is to make sure that we set policies so that from the very beginning, IoT implementations are being implemented in such a way that they are shown to be transparent and that we follow proper software development and platform development life cycles. Now that IoT devices have become intelligent, they're becoming more intelligent, and as these services become more and more available, it's very important for us as IT managers to take a policy-based approach. This is why organizations like Dell and IBM have become so successful in their management software, because shadow IT is a reality. Some say it's good, some say it's bad. Some say it's good because, well, it brings things to market. The problem is if you bring things too quickly to market, you end up with technical debt, which is simply a way of saying, hey, don't follow that software development life cycle. We'll do it later. Well, that incurs a debt that will come back either in the form of a hack or it will come back in the form of an unhappy customer. So as a result, IT workers continue to bat cleanup. So do security workers. And you may end up with a toxic IT type of solution. An applied example here is an email I remember getting from AWS. It was basically saying you have an asset you're not too sure about. And it raises the questions. Who's responsible? Is it Is it you or is it the cloud provider? Well, clearly technology has gotten more complex. That is what our survey is showing you. It has shown us. But we need to work to include IT as part of organizational policy because most company leaders can state a clear business case. But the problem is customers continue to be confused and risk becomes a major component and budget constraints for why we can't use emerging tech. This is because people are getting overwhelmed by those waves of technology. They basically get overwhelmed and almost drown in them. It is the IT professional's job to reduce customer confusion, to help with people avert risk. Now, the problem is most companies don't do this. Now, cybersecurity analytics in our survey has come up as a very important concept. It basically means that you learn your business, you identify the policy, you do asset discovery and move forward. We're finding that from a security perspective, with all of this emerging technology, you can't boil the ocean as a security professional. You need analysts to sit and look and watch and do solutions testing and threat modeling. Sometimes we even need threat hunters. Once I was talking to some folks that was in India, northern India. They were saying a spreadsheet is one of the top things that they use to manage shadow IT. And they said the only reason that works is because they're able to get threat feeds and they're able to compare different attacks. And they talked about cloud native and traditional installed tools such as Spiceworks and LabTech. But here's the key. You can't use NTOP or Wireshark and all these cool things that I love to geek out about unless your ability to communicate is strong. Tech skills are not enough. We basically, as workers, need a combination of human and tech skills. This includes problem solving and teamwork and other key activities, but it involves complex reasoning. And in conclusion, understand that you need broad skills. That means people skills, but deep expertise. But understand that as we are the caretakers of information, it's important for us to get ahead of the wave, to basically surf that wave or find ways to get our employees and ourselves thinking ahead. So that means we take a policy-based decision. We get included in early discussions from marketing, from research and development. We follow secure development life cycles, and we do continue to adopt new tech and train our people. So this concludes my presentation, folks. Thank you very much for your time. My name is James. You can contact me at jstanger@comptia.org. I'm up on Twitter, James Stanger. You can private message me that way. And my email again is jstanger@comptia.org. Thank you very much, everybody. And thank you for your time. And I'm sorry again, I wasn't there to be with you.
Our next session, it was great with Dr. James Stanger. We'll take this questions Q&A session offline. Our next session is on Cloud Journey. Is not a one-way ticket. This is by Michael Joseph. Michael is the Director System Engineering at Fortinet. He started the Fortinet business in India along with the country manager. He has handled project management and security consulting for the customers while working at India's leading ISP for 5 years. He has more than 14 years of experience in IT networking field and last 8 years in the internet security field. I'd like to welcome him upon stage for his keynote.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Incidentally, my field CISO from Europe, Alan Sanchez, was supposed to be here. Again, thanks to coronavirus, he could not travel. I think from our organization perspective, we are a part of the Europe. So I hope to get him maybe the next event or the nearest event. I can't say when because we don't have any clarity of when we will be able to recover from this travel ban, what is being imposed for various countries, for various organizations, etc. So in the next 15 minutes, I would touch upon this cloud journey. I'm sure in the last 2-3 years, everybody had been talking about digital transformation, security transformation, etc. And cloud is one of the pillars of that digital transformation. So let's look at as to know how that journey has been, what has been the adoption, how it's moving, etc. So that it gives you some picture. So from a global perspective, these are different statistics from different people. 94% of the enterprises are already using public cloud. As far as Gartner is concerned, they say that the amount of money what will be spent in terms of moving your data or moving assets to the cloud, it's a huge numbers, what you're talking about in billions. So from a Forrester perspective, they say 83% of the enterprise workloads will be running on public or hybrid cloud by 2020. So from that, if you look at that hype cycle or whatever cycle, what you want to look at from a cloud adoption perspective, so this clearly puts to rest as to, from that evaluation stage, people are into the stage where they are deploying it, they are getting it. I would say it's in the maturity curve of that cloud adoption where people have moved to various clouds, learned a lot of lessons, looked at what is best for their organization, fine-tuning it from various aspects, etc. I would say that is a stage where we are in. So why people are looking at cloud, I think it is very, very inevitable from a C-level people perspective. There are 2-3 key takeaways as to why you would look at cloud from an agility perspective, from revenue acceleration where you want to start a new business, how to roll it out, etc. In terms of startups, I'm sure there are a lot of startups here. Cloud gives you the platform to start an initiative quickly, your CapEx investments, and there is no CapEx investment which is happening, so it's easy for you, and you don't know the scale, how you would need to grow, so that gives you the flexibility in terms of cloud, etc. So it's very clear as to why anybody should look at cloud based on what industry, what you are. Now, when you are talking about cloud, let's look at some reality in terms of where does it stand. So dynamic multi-cloud, so that is a term what we use in today's world. Because if you look at, this is based on a survey done where you can see that people who are using a single cloud, public cloud, people using a single private cloud, vis-a-vis people using multi-cloud. So majority of them are on a multi-cloud. And that too, it is not multiple private cloud or multiple public clouds, it is always hybrid clouds. For whatever reasons what you have, it could be compliance reasons, it could be ease of operations, cost factor could be one of the reasons, etc. But this is what it is. There is nobody, or if you look at very, very few percentage of people who are in just one cloud, whether it's private or public. No, it's multi-cloud for redundancy purpose or cost effectiveness purpose, from geo availability perspective, functionalities, what they offer, what you can achieve out of different clouds could be different, etc. So what we are talking about here, the takeaway is that when you are looking at a framework, even from a security framework perspective, the framework what you should look at should be able to adapt to this scenario where if I move something from the public cloud to a hybrid cloud or a public cloud to a private cloud, do I still protect my ROI? Or what I bought in the public cloud, now when I move to a private cloud, do I have to reinvest that solution, etc. So this is where what we are talking about, dynamic multi-cloud, where people have moved from a public cloud to hybrid cloud. Again, look at the percentage of people who have moved their data from a public cloud to hybrid cloud, predominantly, mostly a private cloud. So when we are talking about cloud, obviously one of the early reasons why people were hesitant to adopt cloud was a security factor. And that security factor doesn't go away. But with that maturity curve of that cloud adoption which is coming in, yesterday also in the panel discussion, this came up very clearly what Gartner is talking about. One of the things what you need to look at is that API security going forward. Because a lot of that interconnects, communication of data, communication between the applications is going to happen over the API. And that is one important area what you need to ensure what you are getting the protection, or you don't neglect that area so that your data and the payloads what you put on the cloud doesn't get. The other factor what we are talking about is understanding the cloud or accepting cloud risk is fine, but ignoring cloud risk can be disaster. Because if you don't look at, or if you just ignore that risk what comes with the cloud and then just keep moving things into the cloud, what you can get into at a later date could be disastrous. Now, coming to the technology perspective, this is a global phenomenon. I'm pretty sure that everybody accepts it. But look at it from an APAC perspective. What is the ratio what we are talking about compared to the US or the Middle East in terms of lack of skilled resources availability? Now, that is a big challenge what we are facing, and I'm sure in India also you could be facing the same issues. Even as an OEM, we face that same issue in terms of capability of technology partners who can go and effectively deploy our solution to the customers and where we can have happy customers. That is one big challenge what we are facing for sure. So what Fortinet also is doing from that perspective, yesterday I heard some public-private initiatives, what is being taken for certain areas. So what Fortinet is doing is Fortinet has set up something called Fortinet Security Network Academies, where any college, university, education institution can enroll, can reach up to this program. We give the complete content so that they can start a cybersecurity program in the universities so that when they come out of the colleges, from the education institutions, they are equipped to certain levels so that it will be easier for you to mold them into the next levels what you require. So this is a program what we are doing across the globe. Even in India, currently there are some 5-6 universities which have enrolled to this program. From a Fortinet perspective, this year we are taking as initiatives where we will be proactively going to the universities and colleges, telling them about this program, how they can take it. There is absolutely no cost involved. We give the content, we give the VMs using which they can run the program. We give the materials, course materials from an instructor, student perspective, etc., so that we can take this forward. Now, in terms of cloud numbers, obviously, if you look at it, it is growing. But there is also a trend, what you're saying that it's an overall story. In some quarters, it will be going down. But in overall, it's growing up. Now, this is a survey what we did along with IHS in terms of understanding as to, from a cloud perspective, what has been the trend. And again, we could see that 74% moved their application from the cloud back to their own infrastructure. Now, this is based on a survey. This was a survey which was done across the globe with respondents from APAC as well as Europe and US. Now, what are the reasons for doing that activity? There could be various reasons. I know there are 1 or 2 very large organizations, global organizations, where they moved from a public cloud to a local infrastructure purely from a commercial perspective, kind of when you move that data to the cloud and the kind of billing, what they were getting and what they had calculated, there was a big discrepancy due to which they moved in. But in some other cases, it could be the security factor, it could be the regulations which could be brought in because Indian government also is bringing in a lot of regulations. Even the previous panels, people were discussing about why when you're talking about a framework, why you also need to start incorporating that Data Privacy Act, what the Indian government is trying to bring in, or accommodating, you can't accommodate, you have to be clear now in today's world about GDPR if you have doing business with anybody outside India, etc. So what does it mean? Just because people moved data from the public cloud to the own premises, it doesn't mean the cloud is dead. Definitely people will still would move to the cloud, but that decisions would be a much more evaluated, mature decisions where they clearly know what they want to achieve out of the cloud, what will be the cost factor involved, what is the kind of performance required, and what are the kind of solutions what they need to buy along with that infrastructure, what they are buying, etc. So with that, when you talk about this circle, how you are going to consume, whether it is a SaaS, whether it is a infrastructure as a service, whether you are going to use PaaS, FaaS, etc. It's a vicious circle where you need to keep looking at as to know what is the best form of technology, what you need to look at for that business requirement, and then accordingly you adopt that technology. Now, from a Fortinet perspective, we have this Fortinet security fabric using which we had been designing and developing our technologies or security solutions. And purely from a cloud perspective, we have solutions what can cater to, whether it's a SaaS solution, what you're looking at, and you want to protect that data, what is going through that SaaS solutions, or you want to look at your private cloud, public cloud, all forms of variants of that public cloud or private cloud. We have solutions what caters to that, and most importantly, the solutions what you purchase from Fortinet to protect your cloud, whether you're in public cloud and then you're moving to another public cloud, you don't lose that ROI in terms of what you've invested. It is just a license what you move from one public cloud to the another public cloud, and the security posture in terms of investment what you made can be protected. Similarly, you move from a public cloud to a private cloud, the same license can be used in that OpenStack or KVM kind of infrastructure what you're looking at. And to complement that solution, we also give this fabric connector, which is an ecosystem using which you can integrate your solutions, the security solutions, what we buy from Fortinet with various other security technologies, whether it's from a threat hunting perspective, whether it's from a SIM, SOAR kind of solution perspective, etc. And we also give you that solutions from, now when you talk about cloud, along with cloud, the new buzzword which has come into the market is that SD-WAN. Because now when you're moving the data to the cloud, now how do you ensure that the end user's experience is not getting impacted and the end users also is able to go from the premises what is there to the cloud to access that data and the experience remains the same. So that is where that SD-WAN comes into picture. So there is a requirement of not just the cloud solutions what is required, complementary solutions in terms of protecting that infrastructure using which how we are accessing the cloud and how to securely access that. And from a Fortinet perspective, we give that solution, whether you want it from a SD-WAN perspective, you want a secure VPN connectivity to the cloud, or accessing the payloads in the cloud, etc. So we give you solutions for the visibility, integrated solutions, whether it's for on-prem or for your cloud, and also solutions where using which you can automate some of the responses, because again, that is a need of the hour. So with that, I would sum up my conclusion here. So from a solution perspective, we give most of our solutions in an appliance format. We give it in a VM format. We offer some of the security services through our cloud. We also have solutions to take care of the new security buzzword which is coming into picture from a cloud, which is the container security. So with that, I conclude, if anybody is interested in terms of the solutions, what we have, how it could complement your requirements, or how it could strengthen your security requirements, what you have, or your security framework, feel free to come to our stall. We have a cloud security specialist also who is available here, who was part of the morning roundtable what we had, where we were talking about cloud workload protection, which is a new technology and a terminology where the people who attended appreciated that. So if anyone would like to know more about it, please feel free to drop over to our stall, and we will be more than happy to help you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. I have to commend you on exactly being on time.